Hello, everyone. Welcome to the newest part edition of the tier list. Billy the Dolphin here is trying to introduce you to the new edition of the PBS Kids show's tier list. So, what we have, for example, here is we got worst, bad, neutral, casual, different, and the 10 out of 10 ratings. So, yeah. Without further ado, let's begin. So, first off we have here is Barney and Friends. Well, typically, I might have saw Barney's Great Adventure, and the movie itself was actually phenomenal because that VHS came out in the 90s by Polygram Video and Lyric Studios. So, I would think it's definitely bad because I watched the series on Peacock and the songs were actually like really weird, and you know I hate the I Love You song because the I Love You song gives me lots of tears and not filled with laughter. Isn't that right, Dash? Like I said, Colin, you might be right. Sometimes Lyric Studios does not have handled opinions. Otherwise, you can only think of that. You might be right there, Dash. But let's get back to the show right now. Next up we have here is something ridiculous that we haven't mentioned yet. Fetch with Rough Man. Well, I gotta put this one on casual. Why? Because they filmed the show everywhere in the New England states. Like, they filmed it in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire and Maine. So, that's what Fetch with Rough Man was all about when most people were actually filming in different areas. Especially with all the science-y stuff like that. And, it's already in particular because WGBH owns the company by its own region. And it's owned by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the National Science Foundation. So, yeah. Next up we have here is Maya and Miguel, which means it's definitely a little bit, different. Because first they've done Clifford and Clifford's Puppy Days. Now it's Maya and Miguel. Do you know why? Because when they first have the DVD in 2004 by Lionsgate Home Entertainment, that's the first DVD to be released during the show's airing times. So, yeah. How about them apples? So, yeah. Next up we have here is the new Bob the Builder reboot. So, I gotta say that show might have been the worst. Because I like the classic Bob the Builder better than this. Because I've done previously a Nick Jr. type of tier list. And it was really good enough. Next up we have here is Dragon Tales. And it's actually like the same creator who makes Pinky Dinky Doo and Sesame Street. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. So, yeah. It's definitely bad. Because, you know, Ord was actually the one who makes Dragon Corn. And Zack and Wheezy were like, you know, Monsters University characters. Which was not that fun to do. You know, two heads are better than one, to be honest. So, yeah. Next up we have here is Zaboomafoo. And it's actually like before Wildcrats just premiered, but let me give you 3 reasons. 1. Wildcrats ripped off Go Diego Go. And Zaboomafoo is like, how the Crab Brothers solve their own, animal tales about what the animal might look like, and they like to go on adventures that's off the Animal Junction. So I would think it's really a 10 out of 10 show because I have it on Prime Video, but right now YouTube bought it. So that's why I'm watching it on YouTube instead of Prime Video. Next up we have here is Clifford the Big Red Dog. And this show came out when they started making the books to the children. And they also made Lionsgate and Artisan Home Entertainment DVDs back in 2002 and 2005. So, I gotta put that one on the 10 out of 10s because it's really good. But Clifford's Puppy Days, I will put that in casual because pretend if Clifford's Puppy Days might be different than that. So, yeah. Next up we have here is the Berenstain Bears. Well, I would say it's the worst show ever. Why? Because it's ripped off Yogi Bear. Why does it rip off Yogi Bear? Because the cast is a little bit different, and it has the same company as Handy Manny, the Backyardigans, and furthermore. Not Hanna-Barbera Productions that they made Yogi Bear. Like, damn, I've never heard about that before. Next up is Sagwa the Chinese Siamese Cat. Blech! It's bad. This is really gonna hell. This is really gonna go to hell as well. Next up is Zoom. Note, Sagwa the Chinese Siamese Cat is like the same company who made Dragon Tales and Piggy Dicky Doo and Sesame Street. So, yeah. Zoom, I would think it's definitely the casuals. Because they filmed it in the Boston WGBH headquarters to film the home piloted version of Zoom. Which they came out in the 80s, but then in the 2000s, GBH Boston bought it. And, yeah. Next up we have here is Between the Lions. Why? Because it's like a Sesame Street ripoff, but it also comes with reading, not with letters or numbers. So I would think it's 10 out of 10. Because, let me give you two reasons. The segments were different, as well as their references. Moby Duck is supposed to be Moby Dick. Cliffhanger is supposed to be for the movie, not a book. And Chicken Jane was supposed to be like a chicken who likes to cross down the street into his lane. And the Sergeants was actually like a Top Gun ripoff. Like, A-E-I-O-U, that sounds like vowel 2, sound off, A-E, sound off, I-O-U, that's who? Yep. It's like the vowels of the army. And there's also a segment called Wayne's World, which was actually a reference to Wayne's World in the later series. And there was also a cooking show starting with Cleo and Theo, starting in What's Cooking. It's like they devouring the raw food, and they list some of those type of events. So, yeah. Between the Lions is like 10 out of 10, which has mistaken references and furthermore. Alright. Next up we have here is Caillou. Like I said in the later videos, it's like Little Bill. I would say it's worse. Because, let me give you a hint on Google. Caillou gets grounded. He was kind of both bad in, like, the show itself and on Go Animate. So, yeah. Without further ado, let's keep going. Because this show ruined my memories as well as what they do. Next up is the worstest show of all, Teletubbies. It's really worse. It's really the worstest show ever. Because, you know, Ragdoll bought their own VHS tapes. Let me search up their own VHS tapes. Because they might have sold it to the Warner Brothers company before Paramount bought their own VHS and DVDs. You see, when I go to images, those are all stupid Warner Brothers VHS tapes versions of that show. It's really creepy as hell. Like, what the hell? And when I go to the UK, it's all BBC. But when I click the USA, that goes straight back to the Warner Brothers tapes. Or sometimes, more example, the Paramount tapes. But, yeah. Teletubbies is really the worst, but you know what's really the worst thing about the logo is? Well, you've guessed it. It's the Ragdoll logo. That logo, it made me scared when I was so little. Without further ado, let's get back to this one. So yeah, worst show I've never watched. Next up we've got is The Electric Company, which I hope this show will come on HBO Max real soon, but I would say it's really different. Because they've got different segments and songs like Sesame Street does. But it's really the same creator who made Sesame Street, but a little bit different than that. So, yeah. Dinosaur Train. Well, it's like a Henson type of animated series, but not a puppet thing. Like Muppet Show or Bear in the Big Blue House. So, I will put that one on, neutral, because I'm really neutral over Dinosaur Train, because, you know, it's really like one of the worst times that animals will never be allowed on a train. It's really not that difficult to tell, because the conductor says, like in the Polar Express movies, tickets, please, stuff like that. Next up, we've got Peep in a Big Wide World. This show is more casual, because this show is about three animals who like to sightsee stuff and they like to play games together. Not nature walk hiking like the mass Audubon societies. So, yeah. Next up we have here is Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Well, you know what that means. 10 out of 10. Because I like the part when Mr. McFeely opens the door and delivers mail. That's the only time that Mr. Rogers brings mail to... That's the only time when Mr. McFeely brings mail to Mr. Rogers. And Mr. Rogers always goes like this. As in the later episodes. So, yeah. Reading Rainbow. And point out, the neighborhood of Make-Believe from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is like a little bit different than Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. And Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood is like, I would say it's casual than Mr. Rogers by any chance. Because the series itself is like way better than that. So yeah, Reading Rainbow. I would say it's casual. Because when I watched it, they've got so many different books that was really available in store. Like, there's a book called Where the Wild Things Are, Goodnight Moon, and many more stuff that they have to do about it. Next up is bleh, Word World. Worst show ever. Big Comfy Couch. Really bad. Because, number one, Word World is where how animals build their words to show the kids about it. And the Big Comfy Couch tells you that a lady with her plushie means like, it's like the Sprouts Goodnight Show, but it's actually a ripoff of Sprouts Goodnight Show. So, yeah. Angelina Ballerina. Well, I gotta say this, but it's bad. Really bad. The one on Sprout seems bad. Same goes with Peacock. they're also bad as well. You know what's the other show that I really love was a 10 out of 10? Both shows. Thomas and Friends and Sesame Street. Give me one of those. Well, for Thomas and Friends, for example, George Carlin or Alec Baldwin or Ringo Starr, who plays the narrator. But in the worst scenes, Gordon might say in my impression voice, "Get out of my way!" That's what he says in the later series. Like, Thomas, the journey of Thomas the Tank Engine is where I made. And for Sesame Street, well, speaking of which, one of the characters seems a little bit different or new in the later seasons. But point out, it has the same or different segments from the later series. Let me give you a point out. Celebrities like Jack Black and some of the other characters from previous shows might have been on the air like a lot of times ever since Jim Henson or Sesame Workshop will never approve. Not so fast. You can't tell Sesame Workshop what to do about it. Count, please get out of here. Okay. Good. Well, you hear that, folks. The Count will never be on the camera ever since I have to point out the celebrities of, like, from other sitcoms or shows. Well, next up we have here is Curious George. That show is neutral because, let me give you a point out. Curious George came out in, like, the 90s as a storybook. Then in the 2000s, they made an animated series and a movie, which seems defeated. And they even have a game that was called Early Learning Adventures by Curious George. Let me just look it up. It was on Google by the time it was my nostalgia hood. Yep, I was right. Early Learning Adventure. That's what I used to play back when I was a kid. On the old PC. Like, whatever the heck that is. And, Super Y was actually a ripoff of Little Einsteins, which means I was pretty, neutral over it. Because, let me give you 3 reasons. Let me give you a Google type of slide pick between Little Einsteins, Wonder Pets, and most importantly, Super Y. Because I've heard so many references all about it. They have so many different vehicles by any chance. Like, first off, this show only has Y-Flyers. Second, this show has the fly boat. And the third show, they have a rocket? That's insane! What the hell did they do? Well, never mind, folks. Let's continue on with this. Shall we? Next up is Cyber Chase. Why? Cyber Chase is like, it's like a sci-fi type of series. Like, they've learned all about science and agriculture, but a little bit different. But they have to save their own universe by their own dastardly villain, Hacker, which he ruins the whole damn system. And that show was actually bad. Because know why? He's like the evil Emperor Zurg from Toy Story, but not anymore. So, yeah. Next up is Sid the Science Kid. Well, casual, because the company who made the puzzle place looks a little bit different. And the other company who made Bear in the Big Blue House on the Muppet Show, or Dinosaur Train, whatever the heck that is, made its own preference on who the characters might supposed to be between KCET or the Jim Henson Company. So yeah, that's how it looks like now and then for Sid the Science Kid. But let me give you a close-up. Each time, Sid wakes up for breakfast to see what his breakfast might look like before he went to school. Teacher Susie gives them a show and tell ideas about what their science experiments were going to be looking like. Then after that, then it was good afternoon, singing a song. Sid's grandmother picks him up, drive him home, and then go straight to dinner and beds. So that's the show it's going to be about. So yeah. Wood Girl. I gotta say it's worse. Why? Because the same company who made Clifford is a little bit different than that. And it's a ripoff of Marvel and DC superheroes, which is pretty intense, as I was mentioned. And because it's the same guy who does Pat the Hammer and SpongeBob, Tom Kenny, voiced the scientist. And even the voice actor who does Chuck the evil sandwich making guy was actually a little bit different than it was used to be. And yeah, in those episodes, at the end of each episode, they even have a game show called May I Have a Word? No, that's not the game show it's all about. But it's like Jeopardy and stuff like that. But they all say, like in the series, May I Have a Word? Yeah, that show is definitely the worst. Next up is Martha Speaks. Blech! Another worse show. Why? How can a dog that's really speaking like crazy? Like, think about the comparisons in particular. Let's give a comparison between Air Buddies and Martha Speaks, for example. Let's see. Air Buddies are like Disney pups who likes to speak and playing sports, and many more of the movie series that they made by Disney. But Martha Speaks is like an animated talking dog who likes to put alphabet soup into his brain. How stupid is that? Very stupid. Very, very, very stupid. Yeah, forget about it. Last up is another 10 out of 10 show, Arthur. Why? Let me give you a comparison between these two. The Simpsons and Arthur, for example, because they have so many different references than either one. First off, Arthur first. Their whole cast of friends looks a little bit different. But The Simpsons itself, they have a whole entire gang in Springfield. But in Arthur and the whole friends, Elwood City. Who knows about that? If Arthur was going to visit Bart Simpson in Springfield, no one else cares if no one else could never understand their opinions about, like, for example, let me give you a Reader's Theater. Hey, Bart Simpson! What is it? What is it now, Arthur? Can't you just tell? We're in Springfield. No, I was in Elwood City. I don't give a damn. Oh, you can't say that! Well, that's all, folks. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Also, Arthur has some different seasons throughout the show, but it will appear on the PBS Kids app or maybe on Prime Video. Who knows? If you search them, you'll never know. Well, this is Carl Dykeman saying, signing you out, and I hope you all to see you real soon. This is Carl Dykeman saying, signing you out.